So I'd just like to talk a bit about research and Indigenous research. We say that ceremony is research, but research is also ceremony. So before students take it upon themselves to do any type of research with our people in our communities, I'd like them to think of this fact that if we talk about ceremony, and we're talking about research being ceremony, then you need to prepare yourself for a ceremony. There's protocols and there's ethical constructs around ceremony. So you need to prepare yourself for research, just like you would if you were preparing yourself to go to a ceremony. So you need to find within yourself this physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional balance that's uniquely yours. And there are no two researchers alike that are going to find the same thing, because we're individuals brought into this world by the Creator, and our body comes from Mother Earth. So when the two come together, we bring a rearrangement, so to speak, of life. And before anyone was born, the sun shone and the wind blew, and it was a beautiful world. Then after someone's born, the sun shines, the wind blows, and it's a beautiful world. But when that person is born into this world, there's a rearrangement that happens. And researchers must look at themselves as they prepare for research. There has to be a rearrangement of themselves totally, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They rearrange themselves from the inside out. So if you look at what your life was like, your community is like, how your education was, where you were in that whole scheme of family, education, and living in a community. Before you go into Aboriginal communities, you need to know this. You will never be exactly like one of those people in our communities. Each individual in those communities came into this world and rearranged everything about the cosmos, just like we all did when we came. And when we leave, when our body goes back to Mother Earth, our spirit goes back to the Great Spirit, it's rearranged again. So we go into those communities with a rearranged idea and thought patterns and feelings about our research. And one thing I want you to remember is not to take ownership and take a stance as this is my viewpoint and this is someone else's viewpoint. If perhaps you go into a community and your method of research is through talking circles and people sharing their ideas and their thoughts, think of it as people being in there with different plates of food. And you go in and there's fruit, there's meat, there's vegetables. So the person with a bowl of blueberries will present their blueberries, their story of their life for the researcher to absorb. And then the person who has got raspberries will present their life story, their way of thinking and their worldview of their life about raspberries. So they're not the same, but they come from the same community. Their ideas are different. The flavor of their understanding is different. On the surface, we may look the same because we all come from the same communities, or we may even speak the same languages, but it doesn't mean to say what we present is the same. So for the people who are researchers, or for the people who are even around in the talking circle, it's not a case of everyone needing to agree But it's a case of listening and being able to, from your standpoint, understand what's being said. And sometimes what's being said will not be understood for maybe 10 to 15 years. It's not going to be immediate. When you prepare yourself for ceremony, when you look at the protocols we need to do, we need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves mentally. So you mentally prepare yourself for that ceremony. You think of all the things that you need to do mentally. You think of things that you need to do physically. You need to get enough sleep. You need to go out and you've got to put down offerings before you even go to ceremony. Traditionally, I've always been told we put down tobacco before we go to ceremony. We're putting down tobacco to say to the Creator, I'm going to a ceremony, see me here. And I'm doing something for myself, for my whole life and body, for my mind and my spirit. Because mind and body and spirit are not separated. When we come into this world, we have a spirit and we have a body. And I often ask people, what do you think is more important, your body or your spirit? Well, neither one is more important than the other, because they're never separated. They never were. Before we're born, we were, our spirit and our body was a part of Mother Earth. Our spirit was a part of the great mystery, the Gitchimanito. But Mother Earth is also a part of Gitchimanito. And then Gitchimanito rearranges everything, and you're brought into this world. And when you pass away, your body is rearranged. It goes back to Mother Earth. Your spirit goes back to Gitchimanito. And it's just the same as before you were born. And remember, I said, before you were born, the sun was shining, the wind blew, it was a beautiful world. After you're born, the sun still shines, the wind still blows, and it's a beautiful world. Nothing changes. And why do you think we call that son, grandfather, son? There's a reason. We say grandfather, son because a wealthy man and a poor man can sit out on the grass. And that sun shining on their faces is no different for the poor man than it is for the wealthy man. That sun doesn't change for them. It's the same. We say grandmother moon because she's the same. She's in that sky, shines just as bright for a poor man as she does a wealthy man. She's still their grandfather too, grandmother too, grandfather. That's why we say those things are our grandfathers and our grandmothers. We need to learn from them. Our communities, our community members that you'll be doing research with, they've learned from their grandmothers, their grandfathers. They bring that learning into those circles. They put that learning that they had into those stories that they tell you. And their stories do not necessarily have to be the same to be a viable story. A story is a story. A person's life is a person's life. If we value Indigenous research and we want to work with Indigenous communities, then we need to look at those communities as a very diverse, wonderful circle, sacred circle, if we call our research, should all be sacred. We're talking about sacred beings sharing their lives. What is more sacred than that? Their feelings, their ideas, and no one owns it. No researcher can own that. It's grown from that community. So if it grows from that community, it should be harvested by that community. And true growth in order and adequacy, love, security, social approval, and self-esteem goes back to the ceremony of the beginning of life. And everyone had a beginning of life.